In this virtual day trip, we're focusing on two fantastic boroughs in Surrey.
Join us as we learn more about exciting places to visit in Runnymede and Surrey Heath.
Hearing fascinating stories from the people who live and work here.
We'll embrace moments to pause and reflect.
And allow space for creativity along the way.
In this episode, we'll be getting some fresh air as we explore St Anne's Hill.
And learn some fascinating historical facts at the beautiful Chertsey Museum.
Finally, we'll head over to Surrey Heath Museum and uncover hidden stories of the past.
Hello and welcome to your virtual day trip. I'm Annalise and alongside Luna we'll journey through the picturesque boroughs of Runnymede and Surrey Heath.
Our first destination is the enchanting St Anne's Hill in Chertsey, famous for its stunning views and biodiversity.
And don't forget to pack your walking boots, Luna. There's a nature trail for us to explore.
I'm on it! St Anne's Hill is popular with walkers and has convenient parking and a bus route close by.
The train station is a 30-minute walk, providing a warm-up before you arrive.
The park blends nature and history, featuring a covered reservoir, meadows and notable trees, with evidence of human activity since prehistoric times.
There have been a number of custodians, including Charles James Fox and Elizabeth Armistead, who played significant roles during the 17th and 18th centuries.
Though the views are impressive, one wonders if past stewards could have imagined Thorpe Park and Heathrow Airport being in one of them.
Andy Roy, the Biodiversity Officer at Runnymede Borough Council, is here to share insights on the local flora and fauna, along with current conservation efforts in the area.
Today we're at St Anne's Hill here in Chertsey. It's probably the nicest bit of parkland that we have around here. It's a mixture of ancient woodland and some plantation woodland. We have a small picnic area of short grass as well. Plenty of paths to choose from, some steep, some not so steep. It's a site with a lot of history to it. It was at one point an ancient hill fort. Unfortunately, most evidence of that has now been lost. But since then, it's been the site of a monastery, part of Chertsey Abbey. Remains of that are still present up on the top of the hill. We've also had, or we still have, a holy well with reputed eye-healing properties from the holy water. And aside from the history, of course, it's an absolutely fantastic site for wildlife. At this time of year, now we're into early autumn, it's a fungal kingdom around here. There's hundreds of species of fungi cropping up all over the place. At other times of the year, we've got plenty of birds around here. Red kites can be seen occasionally breeding in the taller trees around here. We have deer on site, a few amphibians. It's a wonderland up here. It's really, really nice. So in terms of projects we're doing up here, there's a large restoration project, a renovation project on some of the historic features here that are beginning to show their age. So that will be ongoing for quite some time. We also bring volunteers up here and work on some biodiversity projects. There's been a history of invasive species taking over, particularly rhododendron and cherry laurel. We're slowly but surely removing those, which allows then the native tree species to re-establish on here. So a large project of that. We're also working on path renovations and formalising some of the routes around here, putting in some nice signposts and interpretation boards to teach people about the history of the site and what wildlife they can spot whilst they're out here. We're also working on the holy well, and that will be re-renovated at some point in the near future. We're always on the lookout for volunteers. Being in the outdoors has proven benefits to mental and physical health, and you can also help contribute to the upkeep of your local area, and certainly towards the conservation and enhancement of wildlife populations around Chertsey. So people who are interested in that can write to us at the council, and we'll keep people in the loop when there are volunteering efforts. There are other volunteer groups run locally as well. Egham Staines Conservation Volunteers would be the obvious one, but a lot of our parks have got friends of groups who are always keen for people to come along and help out, and we as a council are always keen to hear from people who want to set up their own groups on any area of council land, and we're happy to discuss and support as much as we can. As I say, there are definite benefits to the physical activity of getting out and volunteering in the great outdoors, but there are benefits around working in a group with people, combating loneliness, and hoping to meet people with similar interests to you. So I personally am very much a believer in the benefits of volunteering, and I highly recommend that everyone gives it a go if they have the time.
Thanks, Andy. It's fantastic to hear all about St Anne's Hill and how people can get involved in supporting the area.
However, I'm not sure I'm keen on bathing my eyes in the holy well.
Absolutely not. That task is best left to the professionals.
It certainly is inspiring here. It's a wonderful place to take a walk and soak in the creativity.
Speaking of inspiration, let's head down the hill to Homewood Park, another beautiful open space with a nature trail, all in Chertsey.
Are we going for tea at the big house, Luna?
No, I'm afraid not. Botley Mansion is privately owned. I can tell you though that architect Kenton Coues designed it in the 1700s and also designed number 10 Downing Street.
Wow, fascinating. Well, I'm glad we can still enjoy the parkland and these beautiful trees.
Let's meet Rosie May Jones. She often finds inspiration in the landscape and she's going to share one of her beautiful poems with us.
So I'm Rosie May Jones and I am a multidisciplinary artist specialising in spoken word, poetry and performance, and I am looking at this relationship between identity and landscape. So in my work I'm looking at different ways that you can use arts and poetry to connect to the landscape. I think it's interesting because we're told to go out into the land and experience it, but actually how do you create that relationality? And I think poetry is a really interesting way in, because for me it's all around storytelling. It's about, if you were to get to know a person, right, how would you get to know them? You ask them stories, you tell each other things about yourselves. And I think through looking at these stories that are encoded within place is a great way to connect to the world around us. So a lot of my poetry is based on historical research and folklore, but also from just conversations with people. And this poem arose out of a conversation with someone as we were walking through the woods, and we were talking about trees and about fallen trees and how this moment of cataclysmic damage also creates this opportunity for all of these other things to arise and things to grow that didn't have a chance to before. A fallen oak. A giant of Albion has fallen. She stood in this wood for 400 years, her roots dug deep, now sodden and rotten, drenched in the sweet sap of memory's tears. Just a sapling in the days of the bard, she had survived the felling of forests, shipbuilders tearing her elders apart, the first losses in the untold horrors, sea-bound carcasses cut from the Shire shaped the death carriage of an empire. But she stayed here and grew in English soil, claiming her place by her burgeoning industry, climbing and striving through winters and toil, fighting her way to the top of the canopy. She prospered in this age of sacred property, with lands enclosed and peasants evicted, satanic mills manufacturing poverty, the natural world being ever constricted, crowned for her resistance in a halo of green, proud in her insistence, majestic and serene. But her veteran days are now done. Her mighty form has come tumbling down, clearing a patch of the woods for the sun, raising all life in her fall to the ground. Buried in leaf litter and destruction, but wonder rises from this eruption. Maggots, rodents, clouds of tiny wings, butterflies, birds of prey and buzzing things. Life lives in death. the song of succession sung in the woods by the tree of heaven.
Thank you so much, Rosie May. Your inspiring words really help us pause and appreciate the lovely open space around us.
And for more inspiration, let's head to the town centre and visit Chertsey Museum.
Curator Emma can tell us what we can expect to find inside.
We hold all sorts of items of local importance, archives, photographs, documents, a bit of archaeology and lots of things to do with Chertsey Abbey. We have loads of visitors from the local area who come to look at their history and take part in our activities. So we do loads of stuff for families, for children. We have an under fives club, a young archaeology club for teenagers, holiday activities, stuff like that. So loads of people taking part in that. It's a real sort of community focus to the museum. But then we also, because of the costume, have this national and increasingly international appeal to our visitors as well. So it's interesting when you behind the front desk and you're greeting people to see that there's these two sides to people who come here, and it's lovely to see people come. And often people come for the local history and they go, wow, didn't know you had this amazing costume. And similarly, people come for the costume and then you find them buried in the depths of the museum an hour later looking at all the local stuff that they didn't know was here either. So it's great. It's a great place to work.
Wow, there's so much going on here. Let's get inside and explore.
I'm your biggest fan, Luna, but these are truly special.
Why, thanks, Annalise. The detail on these fans is incredible. And I love the idea of sending signals across the ballroom using the secret language of fan fluttering.
It was the text messaging of the day. Now, let's see if there's a hat to go with your fan.
I think a smaller head is needed for this one.
And you'll need some lace to finish off your ball gown.
These pieces are lovely examples of lacework and are so intricate.
Now, let's step across the hall and into the Runnymede room.
As you explore, get ready to uncover over 100 stunning artefacts.
Each piece is beautifully showcased in a specially lit display case.
Wander around and let these captivating objects narrate the rich history of the borough.
It's incredible to imagine some of these pots, tools and weapons being used in the Roman times.
This permanent exhibition includes an interactive computer feature of Chertsey Abbey.
It's a fantastic opportunity to explore different rooms in the 3D reconstruction. It certainly brings history to life.
We get a great insight into what people through the ages would have experienced while living in the borough of Runnymede.
I love that there are original artefacts as well as computer-generated reconstructions, photographs and this gorgeous railway.
Now, Emma, tell us about one of the famous Chertsey residents in the
So
museum.
this gentleman here is my favourite one of my favourite local residents, a gentleman called Charles James Fox. He was a third son of Lord Holland, as in Holland Park in London, Holland House, and he was an interesting chap. He was the first ever Foreign Secretary for Britain, said to be one of the finest Prime Ministers we never had. He was a Whig politician around the time of Pitt the Younger. They were a great opposition to each other. Said to have never been Prime Minister because he fell out with George III, big time really. What else can we say about him? He lived here on St Anne's Hill in Chertsey. He loved it here, really took to rural life. We have letters in our collection talking to friends about the land he had here, how he used to talk to local farmers about how to rear his sheep and all that kind of stuff as well. But why he's such an interesting chap? Well, he was a terrible gambler, huge debts that he run up that his friends paid off for him, like £20 million worth of debts, that kind of thing. Terrible, terrible gambler, terrible womanizer as well. But all these things were forgiven in Georgian England. They're not too bad. Probably one of the best orators of his generation. Stand up in the Houses of Commons, give the most amazing speeches without notes. He fought for the freedom of the ordinary people. He was a great supporter of the French Revolution, right up to the point they started chopping people's heads off. Then he kind of wasn't quite for that bit. Supporter of American independence, but he was also an abolitionist, and he actually presented the first anti-slavery bill in it became the Slavery Bill of 1807. He sadly died in 1806, so he never got to see it become law, but that was the act that prevented the transportation of slaves or enslaved people in British ships.
Thanks, Emma. It's nice to meet one of St Anne's Hill's residents.
You can dive deeper into history with the brilliant audio guides in the museum.
Now, let's head over to meet Grace, Keeper of Costume, who can tell us all about Olive Matthews and her amazing costume collection.
So Olive Matthews was an independent collector, self-taught, and she started collecting in the early 20th century as a child, and she just loved old garments and antique artefacts and items of embroidery, pieces that had really beautiful skilled workmanship in them. So it's a nationally significant fashion collection. It dates from about 1600 to the present day, and there's over 6,000 pieces in it, and I'm very lucky to look after it and interpret it. She was collecting fashion at a time when it wasn't seen as particularly valuable to antique collectors, so she was a bit of a pioneer, and she managed to pick things up for very little money. She had pocket money given to her by her father, and she never spent more than I think £5 on anything. Back then obviously that was quite a lot of money, but it was still a fairly low amount. And she used to go to Old Caledonian Road Market in Camden Town, near where she lived. And she used to go to all the little stalls there, and she picked up these amazing bargains. There's a beautiful pink silk Spencer, which is in the current exhibition, which is called High Waist to Romantic Tastes, all about Regency fashion. And this Spencer is a great favourite with many people who love the fashion collection. It's made of silk, it's got incredible detail on it, it's all hand stitched, and it's a really stylish item. It would have looked amazing on the person who wore it. Our earliest piece is a man's nightcap from about 1600, and wonderful to have a piece of Tudor costume clothing in the collection, and that's really interesting because it's got amazing embroidery on it, and all symbolic embroidery that means something, would have meant something to the person who wore it. Yeah, that's a really special piece. There's only a few nightcaps like that in existence. We do have film costumiers come. This Spencer here has been interpreted for the recent adaptation of Emma that was out in 2020. We have people coming from all over the film industry actually, because we're quite accessible. Lots of the garments are available for people to study and research. We do different exhibitions every year, so we have different themes. Each exhibition runs for 12 months. That's partly because they take a long time to prepare, so each of these mannequins might take 12 hours to produce, to pad ready for the garments. A lot of items need to be conserved to make sure they're robust enough for display, so it's important that they're done properly. They obviously have to be stored very carefully within temperature and humidity limits, which are important because you don't want to get dress too humid or too dry, and they have to be stored in boxes with acid-free tissue, and the environment has to be perfect for storage, so that's important. We have some storage here in the museum, but also we have some off-site because it's quite a large collection.
Thanks, Grace. There's so much to see here.
And we can dress up.
Your favourite activity, Luna?
Let's imagine we're visiting friends in Chertsey during the Regency times.
Get ready to breathe in, Luna.
I really think this needs to go under my jumper, Annalise.
And I think the museum cat agrees.
Whilst we get changed, Emma can tell us some more interesting facts.
This is our 10th century Viking sword, which was found in the early 1980s in local gravel pits in what's now Thorpe Park. And it was found one afternoon when they were doing gravel extraction. It was pulled up on the top of a grabber, and as you do, you find an amazing Viking sword there. And it's a fabulous item. It has very slight indentations on the blade, which the maker's and manufacturer's mark, which says Ulfbert, and it was taken off to the British Museum for conservation work and identification. You can just about see, if you look carefully, there's little traces of silver and copper wire in the hilts there, which would have been the decoration. A great object. We don't really know how it came to be here in Chertsey. The Vikings did sack Chertsey Abbey at least twice. The first time was in 871 AD when they slaughtered the abbot and the monks. We don't know whether it was left sort of around that time, maybe a bit later in the second raid possibly. We don't know. It was found in gravel, so that implies that there was a watercourse there beforehand, so maybe it was left as an offering to a Norse god. We don't know. So it's hung here for quite a long time, say since the 80s, as one of our prize objects. And then in about, I think it was 2010, a gentleman from the Wallace collection, a specialist in weapons, did a bit of research on Ulfbert swords, and he came to have a look at ours. And he revealed a hidden story behind our sword. It turns out that of all the Viking swords that have been discovered, a lot of them in grave burials and things like that, when archaeologists have uncovered grave goods, there's about 170 that have been identified as Ulfbert swords. It turns out that some of them are knockoffs. They're forgeries. And it turns out that they can tell by the quality of the steel. So an Ulfbert sword, what made an Ulfbert sword was the carbon content. And the makers, whoever this Ulfbert was, they were made swords between about 800 and 1000 AD or CE, current era. And that was a 200-year period. And they were using metal that was an amazing quality, not found anywhere else in Europe at that time. In fact, the steel content wasn't able to be replicated, the quality of it not able to be replicated for another 800 years until sort of the Industrial Revolution. And so nobody really knows how they did it. They don't know how they had the technology to heat the metal to such a high temperature to get rid of all the impurities, to make it that pure, to make the carbon content that good. Turns out that of the swords that this gentleman, Dr. Alan Williams, was investigating, some of them had quite a low carbon content, including our one. And not having that carbon content made it brittle, which means it's much more likely to snap in battle, which obviously would not be a good thing to do. But ours clearly is all in one piece, so it wasn't discarded because the owner realised it was defective in some way. So it just adds more questions to why this amazing weapon was left here in Chertsey. We will unfortunately never know that, but we're still very proud to have it here at the museum.
Now we're going from the Vikings to the 1970s, the era of my childhood, Annalise.
And more opportunities to dress up.
It was a time of peace and love, man.
The Chertsey Museum has somewhere in the region of about 26,000 local history items. Well, clearly we can't display all of those in one go, apart from the fact it's not good for some of the objects to be out for that length, for permanently on display. So we change things over, and we have a programme of temporary exhibitions, of which this is one of them, up till the end of the year. And so we do sort of maybe 4 or 5 exhibitions a year, which gives us a chance to get those items out, to show different aspects of the collections to people. Obviously not everything appeals to everyone, so we can hopefully throughout a year find something that people will enjoy coming to visit. It gives us a chance to do various events and things linked to those exhibitions as well, and hopefully entice more people to come in and see us, because after all, we are free for anyone to come in and visit, so there's something for everyone here. This exhibition about the 1970s came about because this year Runnymede Borough Council, who funds the museum, turned 50, as a lot of local authorities did, and so we thought it would be a fun way to look back and see what the borough was like in the 1970s when the council was formed. And we don't have a huge collection of things from the 1970s here at the museum, so we went out to the friends of the museum and to the people who lived in the borough through social media, and this is what we came up with: an amazing collection of stuff, everything from space hoppers to chopper bikes to Rubik's cubes, and an amazing selection of toys. And it's been one of our most popular exhibitions, I have to say, because even if you weren't around in the 70s, there's something for everybody here. But so many of our visitors come in, and the phrase we hear most echoing through the museum in the last few months is, "I had one of those."
Satin shirts and tight-waisted flared trousers were all the rage on the dance floor.
Our moves need a bit more work before the village people will hire us.
Big part of the collection we have here are photographs and documents, which we have available to members of the public. So 3 times a week, on Wednesday afternoons, Thursday afternoons and Saturdays, members of the public can just come into the museum. You don't need an appointment, and we have a member of staff on hand to help you do your sort of family or local research, whether it's looking up where your granny lived or seeing whether we have a photograph of the house that you live in. We can hopefully help with your research here.
Thanks, Emma. There's certainly a lot to see and get involved with at Chertsey Museum.
Whilst we're in Chertsey, let's have a look around. Outside St Peter's Church, you'll see the War Memorial, unveiled in 1921, with more names added following the Great War and after 1945.
Next door is the Crown Hotel, and beyond that, the Old Town Hall, built in 1851.
More modern buildings include Chertsey Library, down by the River Bourne.
We're great fans of the library service, and across Surrey there are over 50. It's free to join, and once you have, you can go to any of the others.
Do an online search to check out what your local library has to offer.
The pretty River Bourne is a great place to stop and listen to the birds when you're visiting the library, and great inspiration for our craft activity.
Let's take a moment to pause and reflect on the beautiful places we explored today by colouring in our postcards. You will need the postcard printout, colouring pencils or pens, a pair of scissors and a glue stick. Colouring isn't just for children, it's a wonderful, relaxing activity that people of all ages can enjoy. Once you've finished colouring, simply cut out the postcard, stick it together and write a note to a friend. Why not invite them to join you on a visit to some of the lovely places we discovered, or tell them about your favourite places? Don't forget to pop a stamp on before you post it. So let's grab our pens and pencils and bring our adventure to life on paper.
Our next virtual day trip stop is Camberley in Surrey Heath.
Camberley has a great theatre, but today we are visiting Kathy at the Surrey Heath Museum.
The museum is in the Square Shopping Centre, so you can combine your shop with a bit of history. Just don't confuse those artefacts with your groceries.
I really appreciate that both museums we're visiting today have shops. It's great to deepen our understanding of what we experienced during our visits.
There are lots of books on the area and some great memorabilia items too.
You can look back at historical toys in the museum and buy items that relate to different periods of time to commemorate your visit.
I always love to buy a new pencil from the gift shop.
The museum has great displays with intriguing items, and like Chertsey Museum, it's free to visit.
And has a regular programme of events and talks.
Kathy, tell us more about the museum.
I'm Kathy, I'm the Education Officer for Surrey Heath Museum. Surrey Heath Museum is actually based in the Square Shopping Centre in Camberley. We're open Tuesday to Saturday from 11 till 4. We're a local history museum which basically holds objects from the local history which people have given us throughout the period that we've been open.
The museum has a permanent collection and changing displays and exhibitions.
This temporary exhibition showcases some wonderful replicas of William Patterson's watercolour paintings, capturing the area over 250 years ago.
Patterson was a tutor at the Royal Military College, Sandhurst, now the Royal Military Academy.
and it's just a 10-minute drive from the museum.
And it's not only visual artists who have connections with the local area, is it, Kathy?
Yeah, so we've been lucky enough to have some musical influence from the area as well. We've had Bros, if you're old enough to remember Bros, Matt and Luke Goss and Craig, their school friend. They started off from Collingwood. And we've also had the Spice Girls manager. He was based in Camberley. Other musical influences, we've had Ethel Smythe. So she was the suffragette lady, and she actually wrote the March of the Suffragettes, which was actually played as well. So that's a big musical influence there.
As you explore the museum, you'll discover lots of artefacts.
Ooh, they look like a happy pair of fighters.
There are tales from local residents that provide us with a glimpse into their lives, capturing social history and the origins of how the town developed.
So Camberley was actually developed from the Royal Military College by Charles Raleigh Knight. And when the Royal Military College actually arrived here, there was hardly anything here because it was just heathland. And that's exactly what the military actually wanted. They just wanted their officers to train on heathland. But he could sort of see there was benefits to actually having inns and shops and things. So he actually created Camberley, and that's how the Camberley as we know it has actually arrived. It was actually first called Cambridge Town, but it had to be changed because Cambridge, all the posts that went to Cambridge rather than Cambridge Town, and that's when it was actually changed to Camberley.
Inside the museum you can explore fascinating items from different eras.
It's incredible to see how much has changed. Today's equipment and machines are true labour-saving devices.
But I love seeing the attention to detail in the design and the materials that they're made of.
This is our World War I room recreation. We've got loads of objects in here. The bit I like the most is talking about the washing machines that we would actually have had in World War I. And this would have actually been put into a big barrel with the clothes and the mixture, and actually would be your spinning thing in your washing machine. But we've got the old irons as well. They always had ladies or mums used to have 2 irons on the go. One would actually be on the hob on the top, heating up, whilst the other one was actually being ironed out, and they'd swap it over. And to see how hot it would be, they had actually spit on the iron before they'd actually use it on the. But they were heavy. You'd have to have some good old muscles.
You'd better build up your strength to tackle that ironing, Luna.
No way, Annalise. I'd have you do the ironing while I whip up something delicious, maybe with a dash of powdered egg.
So we're lucky in the museum to have room recreations, and here we are with Bob, our resident mannequin, in the World War II parlour. So it's like a living room, and we've got bits and pieces that they would have actually had. So we've got a gas mask here that Bob would have used. Here we've got a map where it shows where all the bombs were actually fell in Camberley, in the area as well. The painting that is actually in the World War II parlour is a painting of the Blue Veil, which is from Percy Harlan Fisher, who's a local artist from Camberley. So we've actually set Bob up as if he was a warden, a fire warden in World War II, just coming home, having a cup of tea and having a read of the newspaper.
I bet Bob has lots of stories to share.
Well, as the kettle has just boiled, I can sit down and hear them. Ooh! Hang on, what's this? Bob, you really need to put your bombs somewhere safe.
You nearly did yourself an injury there, Luna.
It's a good job Bob is funny, but some of his tales aren't fit to share with everyone.
You'd better find a story you can tell us, Luna.
Here's one. During the Second World War, Bob and his wife Joyce lived in a quaint cottage. To lift their neighbours' spirits, Joyce decided to host a bring and share meal, encouraging everyone to bring their best ration dish. Bob proudly presented his spam pie, while Joyce served her famous powdered egg quiche. Just as everyone began to enjoy the meal, their cat, Whiskers, jumped onto the table, sending the quiche flying. Bob caught it before it hit the floor, and Joyce laughed, saying, Well saved, Bob. We avoided a catastrophe. The room erupted in laughter, proving that even during tough times, a bit of humour and a cheeky cat could brighten the day.
Well, we're off, Bob. We want to have a look at what you've got in the garden.
Bloomin' heck, I'm so glad those two have finally left. All I want to do is read my paper in peace with a nice cuppa.
We're all set, Annalise. You're welcome to join me anytime.
Just as long as there's a spam pie waiting for me in there, Luna.
Absolutely. Come on in and enjoy.
So part of my job, part of my role is education. So we've actually created, as part of the sort of children's aspect, we've created an Anderson shelter in the museum, and the children can come in and actually have a look and see what it would be like if you had to go into an Anderson shelter in the war. So we've come here and you can walk right in. It's actually quite big. But although I wouldn't want to sleep in here at all. So with the Anderson shelter, this is only a replica. It's not a real one. Normal Anderson shelters would actually be built into the ground, and you would only see the corrugated iron bit on top. And lots of people actually started growing vegetables and things over. It was for the Dig for Victory, so they would actually use the space and as a soundproofing as well to actually grow their vegetables on top of the Anderson shelter. Hence our bit of green up there.
Now for something completely different, we're off to the shoe shop.
And I've got just the thing for you.
There appears to be a bit of a sizing issue here, Luna.
And let's see what else we have under the counter. Ooh, these boots are nice and shiny.
But too small. You'd best let Kathy take over.
So this is Chapman's shop. We sort of recreated his shop here. Chapman was a local shoe shop. Everyone knows, if you're from Camberley, you know Chapman's shoes. He actually left us all of his sort of bits and pieces. And actually when the curator, Jill, and I were clearing this out, ready to put into the museum, we actually found an unexploded World War II bomb in the bottom of here. When I was down there pulling all the bits out, because we had to empty the whole of the unit, because it's a super heavy unit. We had to pull everything out. And I just lifted out this thing, and I was going, Jill, be careful, this is really heavy. And she just stopped. She said, just Kathy, don't move. Because she knew, I didn't know at all, but she knew this part hadn't come off, which meant it hadn't exploded. So she really carefully took this thing out of stores. And we actually had to close down the whole of the council offices because it was an unexploded bomb, and they had to get the bomb squad out. And we've got a certificate now to say that it was actually quite safe. So, but yeah, the whole of the council offices was shut down for about 3 hours, where the bomb squad had to actually come in and X-ray the bomb. So the bomb wasn't actually a real bomb. It was like a dummy bomb that they used to throw out of the aircrafts to test which way, with certain weather conditions, which way it would actually fall down and how far it would actually go. So it wasn't. That's why it was an unexploded bomb, because it wasn't a real bomb. It was just a dummy bomb.
From unexploded bombs to all the fun of the fair.
I love a scale model, and this is beautifully made. The artwork is gorgeous.
I used to love the swing boats when I was younger.
Me too! I always preferred the fair to the circus. I always felt sorry for the animals.
Speaking of animals, Kathy can tell us a great story about an elephant.
In Camberley, at the bottom of Camberley, as if you're going towards the meadows and Blackwater, there's an industrial park there, and outside the industrial park there's the Camberley Elephant, which is basically the gateway into Camberley from Sandhurst and Blackwater. The Camberley Elephant was actually made from Trollope and Coles, who were a manufacturer of piping, and they actually created the elephant to actually show all of the different sizes of piping that they could actually use. So it's from massive industrial size to tiny little pipes that they can actually use. And it was almost like a business card. Trollopens Co aren't there anymore. When a company actually do go in to lease a unit there, they actually have a contract that they have to pay to maintain the Camberley Elephant. So the Camberley Elephant should always be there because whilst the industrial park's there.
There's also a wonderful archive in the museum where you can look at old photos, memorabilia and documents.
Another way to explore the fascinating history of Surrey Heath.
Discovering pictures of old hospitals and businesses with information about each one.
It's great to see how things from the past link to the shops and services in the area today.
Bagshot and Camberley, which is where we are and we cover in Surrey Heath Museum, is actually on the A30, which is the main road that was going from London all the way down to the West Country. And because of Bagshot was developed, because it was the first stop on the stagecoach going down to the West Country, loads of inns and hotels were actually built up in the area. You went from Bagshot then onto Heathland. So you had these stagecoaches going down and of course there were no banks or anything in the area, so they used to carry all of their money with them. It was a great place for the highwayman. So we've actually got some really famous highwaymen and they would have had hats like this on. I'm going to tuck my ears in.
Right, Annalise, Kathy has found me this gorgeous dress, so I'm off to ride in my carriage.
You look quite the lady, Luna. But I don't think you've bargained for an encounter with this great highwayman. Known for his audacious robberies, one day after galloping around on his trusty steed, he spotted a lady in her carriage and was eager to relieve her of her valuables. With a glint of mischief in his eye, he dragged her from the carriage.
With a couple of swift right hooks, she sent the bandit running for the hills, leaving her to triumphantly return to Surrey Heath to regale everyone with her tale, much to their delight.
People followed her to places of splendour and squalor.
She read to them and became the social influencer of her time. She even travelled to the future to catch up with Bob.
Who'd thought he'd seen the last of her hours ago? Wow, you've definitely exceeded your sugar ration for today, Luna. I'm going to take you away and give Kathy and Bob a well-deserved rest.
It's such a lovely time being a lady.
I can tell, but I think you need some fresh air before we head home.
You're right, Annalise. Let's enjoy Lightwater Country Park.
It's a 10-minute drive from Surrey Heath Museum and right on the edge of Lightwater Village.
This stunning park spans 59 hectares and features heathland, ponds, woodland and meadows, making it a haven for wildlife.
Plus, the heathland is a site of special scientific interest.
There's also an education and conservation team here.
As well as a cafe, so perfect for a day out.
Wow, what a great day we have had!
We've seen so much and met so many wonderful people.
Thank you for joining us on our adventures.
We hope you've had as much fun as we have.
See you next time! This virtual day trip was created by Whistlestop Arts.
And it was funded by Arts Partnership Surrey.
Thank you to everyone who has supported this project.
For more resources and information about the work that we are involved in, please visit whistlestoparts.org.